So when we start the talk, we usually start with a phrase that expresses homage to the Buddha. We basically came up with it because people liked a little bit more chanting during the evening. So this is a way to bring some chanting into the evening. So if you know the phrase, please chime in. My voice is not like the best chanting voice. And if you don't, you can just listen and enjoy the chant. So let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So tonight I was thinking of talking about walking meditation because the walking is often a little bit underemphasized, at least in our Vipassana Insight tradition. It seems to be a little bit less valued than the sitting, and often people like it a little less more, and we're sitting for 40 minutes and then walking for 20 minutes, so even there's a little bit of an imbalance maybe. And if we meditate by ourselves at home, I think maybe 90% of the people probably only do a sitting meditation and not a walking. So in a way, walking meditation is actually a very valuable practice though. So I will be going deeper into why it is so valuable tonight, and into how we can use it to our benefit as well. I was one of those people when I started practicing that I didn't really like the walking meditation that much, but over time it actually changed, and when I started doing it more and learning more about it, not sure what's up with that, but it's still working. When I started to do it more and started to learn more about it, I started to appreciate it more and more. It kind of grew on me, and now I appreciate it very much. So walking is
is disconnected.
Sorry, it's a new system, so I'm figuring it out. Maybe after that.
You might be going back.
We can try to see after the evening if we can figure it out. So walking meditation is one of the four formal meditation postures that are mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta. That's the discourse that most of the instructions for the Insight tradition are based on. And it's also the discourse that you're studying on the Tuesdays that I'm not here. Anyways, the Satipatthana Sutta, there are four postures mentioned in the sutta, which are the sitting and the walking, also the standing and the laying down. And the Buddha gives a very simple instruction to us. It goes like, when a practitioner is walking, they know I'm walking. When standing, they know I'm standing. When sitting, they know I'm sitting. And when lying down, they know I'm lying down. Whatever posture their body is in, they know what their posture is. End of the quote. So, yeah, it's a very simple instruction that is open to a lot of interpretation. And so maybe that's why over the centuries since the Buddha's time, different teachers have suggested different ways of doing walking meditation because it's such an open instruction. And the style of walking that we do during these evenings is inspired by this Burmese monk called Mahasi Sayadaw. And it was a monk who lived in the previous century. He was one of the great meditation masters of the previous century. And he has influenced, for example, how we do walking in the big...
New agent is disconnected.
Shall I try without?
New agent is disconnected.
So he has influenced how walking meditation is taught at, for example, the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts and Spirit Rock in California. They're bigger centers of the Insight tradition here in the US. And so in the Mahasi style, in general, we would walk like back and forth between 2 points that we set, like maybe 10 or 20 paces. Doesn't have to be anything exact. And that's a little different than we do here, than we walk in a circle, but that's mostly because of the space here. It's going to be hard for everyone to walk back and forth. But the walking back and forth is a valuable way of practicing, because we get to walk at our own pace. And the pace can be very important in the walking meditation, because it can help us to stay more awake, for example. Like if we're a little sluggish, then maybe a little bit of a faster pace might help. When we feel really concentrated and focused, then a slower pace might be really nice and helpful. So, well, we don't have the luxury here often that we can walk from hall to hall. So we'll just walk in each other's rhythm, basically. Another advantage is that we get to stop at the wall and then have a little moment of mindfulness, like, oh yeah, I was doing walking meditation, because you might have noticed that the mind just wanders during the walking meditation as well. And then when you have this little break and you can turn around, the mindfulness might come back. So another characteristics of this style are that we keep our eyes open and gaze a little bit in front of us, but we don't look around. We're not going to distract ourselves. And the influence of Mahasi is also that we walk slowly, because he advises that, because the slow walking really gives us an opportunity to tune into the direct experience at the moving foot. So it literally, but also figuratively, slows us down, and that's very helpful for our mindfulness, because the slowing down of the body can also help slow down the mental processes. So I usually observe the moving foot, but you could also observe both feet or just the legs, or like generally the lower part of the body. It's about focusing on something that is easy for you, and I often find that the more I narrow it down, a smaller area of just the moving foot instead of like the whole lower body, for example, is easier, because there's less stuff happening. So it's easier to follow what is happening in just one area of the body. But you can experiment for yourself, whatever you think works for you, and it can change from time to time as well. Of course, sometimes you might feel like really focusing in, and sometimes maybe a little broader awareness. It's really an exploration of trying out what works. And so when we walk, is this actually a good volume, by the way? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. We are aware of the direct sensations in the area that we've chosen. And to be aware of those sensations, we can use another teaching from that same sutta, the same discourse, that Satipatthana Sutta, which is the teaching on the 4 elements. and I'll give the sutta quote. The Buddha says, "A practitioner examines their own body, whatever its placement or posture, according to the elements. In this body there is earth element, water element, fire element, and air element." End quote. So each of these elements is basically a concept pointing to the direct experience of sensations. And in the Abhidhamma, which is the Buddhist psychology, which is like a commentary to the Buddha's teachings, so it's from a little later period of time than when the Buddha lived. So in those commentaries, the exact attributes of each of those elements are being mentioned, and they are as follows. So the earth has 6 attributes: hardness and softness, heaviness and lightness, roughness and smoothness. Water has 2, flowing and cohesion. Fire is heat and cold, so basically temperature. And air is supporting and movement. And so in that text, that commentary, the Abhidhamma, it is said that everything that we can experience in our bodies falls under these 4 elements. They are, so to speak, ultimate realities, as they call them, which means that we cannot divide them up any further. And that is what makes them ultimate, that we cannot divide them up any further. So, for example, if you feel pain, then you often can discern like certain aspects of the pain. Maybe there's heat, or there's movement, or hardness, or whatever it is that the pain consists of. But when we feel hardness or heat, we can't really discern anything further than that. So that's why it's an ultimate reality. You can say heat is built up out of this or that. So these names like heat and cold and movement and hardness and softness are also just names or concepts that point towards the direct sensation and the direct experience of what our body experiences. So the names are not the most important thing. It's more about the direct experience. And if you have a different label for your experience, that's fine too. So you don't have to like exactly remember all those attributes. But in our walking meditation, we can really discern all these different sensations, and it can help us become more aware of all the things that are happening when we walk. Like we can feel the hardness of the heel touching the floor, but then the softness of maybe the ball of the foot when that touches the floor, the flesh there. Or when the foot's in the air, we can feel the movement of the foot. So there's a lot of detail to be discerned when we do the walking. And it's really interesting to be curious about all these little details that we can discern. And I was pointing towards the lifting and the placing, but once we start to notice what is happening, you can see that there's like 100,000 things happening between lifting and placing that we can become curious about. And so I don't name this that we can, start to get into our head, like, oh, what exact element am I feeling, or, what label should I use? It shouldn't be like another effort thing. It should just be a support. So if it's not a support, you can just let it go for now. So you can use it just to frame your experience, basically, of the walking meditation. And what's most important is that we just let whatever is happening happen in the foot, in the moving foot, and be aware of whatever is happening. So far I've talked about the ins and outs of the walking meditation, and I also like to talk a little bit about why we should practice walking meditation, what's so beneficial about it. And in the suttas, the discourses, the Buddha actually has a very short, brief discourse on the benefits of walking meditation. And it goes as follows. Practitioners, there are these 5 benefits of walking meditation. What 5? One becomes capable of journeys. One becomes capable of striving. One becomes healthy. What one has eaten, drunk, consumed, and tasted is properly digested. The concentration attained through walking meditation is long-lasting. These are the 5 benefits of walking meditation. End quote. And so I want to talk a little bit about each of those benefits, starting with the last one, which is, I think, the most relevant for our practice. And this one was the one about concentration. The concentration attained through walking meditation is long-lasting. So you might have experienced that when you do the walking meditation, that you might get a little bit more concentrated, a little bit more in the zone, so to speak. And so being centered and focused and concentrated is one of the reasons to do the walking meditation. It's a real support in our practice. And sometimes it can be even super beneficial to start off with some walking meditation and then go sit. Because walking will help settle the mind. It's like it's going to do the pre-work for us. So this type of walking that we've done today and that I've described, the Mahasi style, is very suitable for the concentration practice because we focus on this one thing. The foot, for example. And it is also easy to, or not easy, but it can be useful to do the walking meditation as a form of concentration because the sensations in the foot are so clearly perceivable for most of us. It's also a fairly neutral object for most of us. It's fairly neutral to feel those sensations. So those 2 aspects, that it's neutral and it is somewhat easy to follow, is very helpful to build concentration. And the neutrality, like you can imagine that if it's not neutral, if it's unpleasant or if it's pleasant, then either aversion or desire is gonna come in and try to grasp the object or push it away. So the concentration or a certain amount of focusedness can help us to see more clearly what is happening in body and mind. So this settledness of the mind can help us to receive the experience just as it is. So it can be very beneficial to build a little bit of concentration. And we can do that with sitting meditation too, like what we did with the breath in the beginning. Just following the breath for a while also builds some concentration. And then at some point we open up to all sensations, and that's more the vipassana part, the insight part of our practice, is when we open up to all experiences. And the advantage of doing that is that we start to see what is happening in body and mind. We start to learn about our experiences, about our patterns and habits and conditionings that are happening. We start to learn to be present for pleasant and unpleasant, for the whole range of the human experience. And that is kind of what the vipassana or insight practice is about that part. But the concentration is just very useful support in that endeavor. So the concentration benefit of the walking is just one of the benefits that the Buddha named. And there are 4 other ones that he named, and they're all physical. So the first one was that one becomes capable of journeys. And you can imagine that in the time of the Buddha, the monks and the nuns might have to go on journeys from monastery to monastery, or even would live off in the woods and then had to go on alms round. So they had to, have some kind of capability to go on a journey. And the walking meditation, like if you only sit, then it's not gonna help you much to make this journey. So the walking meditation will help you to stay in balance and be able to also go on a journey. The second benefit is that one becomes capable of striving. And this is one translation. So this is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, for those of you who know him. And there's also Bhikkhu Sujato, who translated as fit for striving in meditation. So the walking meditation, how I see it, puts in place the conditions for applying right effort or wise effort in our meditation. Often here in the West, the word striving is not that great because we're going to try too hard, we strive too hard. So it's about the right amount of effort, just a balanced effort. And I think another way to interpret this capability of striving would be that we also can generate some energy when we walk. So if we're sleepy or sluggish or just don't have that much energy, we could start some walking and generate some energy as well, which helps us to be able to meditate. So you might recognize that's the hindrance of sloth and torpor, which is one of the 5 classical hindrances, which I won't go into. But we can use the walking meditation to overcome this hindrance, which is also super useful. And then the third benefit is that one becomes healthy. And I think that's kind of, an obvious thing in our, our contemporary culture, that movement is making us healthy, is helping us to be healthy or stay healthy or become healthy for most of us. So I think that's kind of an obvious one. And then the fourth is about our digestive system working properly. And also this, I think, is kind of obvious, like movement helps our digestive tract going. So altogether, the Buddha names these 5 very practical benefits of the walking meditation. So the concentration, being able to travel, the capability of striving in a good way, becoming healthy, and a properly working digestive system. And I think especially the concentration as well as the striving, including the generating of the energy, are super useful in our practice. Also at home, I think. If we have a practice at home, we can use this as well. So we might even consider adding some walking meditation to our practice at home. Even if it's just like 5 minutes before every sit, you do a few minutes of walking. Can be already like helping to settle the mind a little bit, and if you then sit, you can really feel the difference. And it only, for a few years, I wasn't able to walk that much because of a back injury, and that's also why I'm using all these props still. But I could walk maybe a minute or 2, or sometimes 5 minutes, and I would do that before my sitting, and it would still be really beneficial, and I really noticed the difference between doing those 1 or 2 minutes and not doing it. So I can really recommend it. Well, luckily nowadays I can do a little longer meditations, and I can even go on long walks. So use it strategically. Use it when you're sluggish or sleepy. Instead of sitting, you can go do some walking, or even like when there's a lot of thinking is happening, a lot of mental stuff, mental proliferation going on, you could just focus on the feet for a while. It's really helpful. Just focus on the walking. And I'll close with a poem by Rosemary Watola Trommer called Freedom. To walk alone on the dirt road, whatever the weather, to be grateful for it, to step and step and step again, not toward an end, but for the joy of stepping.